Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Midnight News broadcasting live from Algiers. I'm Maryam Zian, and here are your headlines for tonight. In the ongoing war against the Gaza Strip, Israeli soldiers killed 31 people in 4 massacres during the past 24 hours, and UN bodies warn of the dire consequences due to the closure of the Rafah crossing. Coming up next in our program, internal divisions erupt in the Israeli government as pressure mounts on Netanyahu for Gaza post-war plan. And Algeria reaffirms commitment to African cooperation and economic integration at AU session in Equatorial Guinea. Welcome back. The Palestinian Ministry of Health in Gaza announced that the Israeli occupation committed 4 massacres against families in the Gaza Strip, killing 31 people and wounding 56 others in the past 24 hours. The Ministry of Health revealed in a statement that the death toll has risen to 35,303 martyrs since October 7. Government Media Office demanded that pressure be applied to the occupation to permit the passage of relief convoys through recognized land ports and to reopen the crossings at Al-Mintar, Shuja'iyya, Beit Hanun, Rafah and Karam Abu Salim. The head of the Government Media Office in Gaza, Salama Ma'rouf, affirmed that land crossings are the most efficient and effective for funneling aid to the Strip and preventing the spectrum of famine that threatens all of its areas.
We reaffirm, in light of the talks about the water crossing, that land crossings are the most efficient and effective for delivering aid to the Gaza Strip, reducing the food security crisis and preventing famine that threatens all areas of the Strip. The international community must come together urgently before it is too late to save those dying of hunger, and the best way to do this is to activate land crossings in a way that allows sufficient and regular entry of aid and relief trucks.
World Health Organization has warned of the consequences of impeding the entry of medical supplies into the Gaza Strip and stated that the closure of the Rafah crossing places humanitarian workers in a difficult situation. Meanwhile, the United Nations confirmed on Thursday that the entry of aid by land into Gaza is the fastest path to avoiding the catastrophe of famine in the Strip.
Delivering the aid on the ground. So can you, since
the closing of Rafah crossing, closure of that crossing is putting us at a difficult situation when it comes to movement of people, medical workers, rotation of UN staff and emergency medical team staff, but more importantly also on the supplies. We didn't have any supplies coming. The last medical supplies that we got in Gaza was before May 6th.
However, getting aid to people in need into and across Gaza cannot and should not depend on a floating dock far from where needs are most acute. Land routes are the most viable, effective, and efficient aid delivery method, which is why we need all crossing points to be opened. To stave off the horrors of famine, we must use the fastest and most obvious route to reach the people of Gaza, and for that, we need access by land now.
The military spokesman for the Al-Qassam Brigades, the military wing of the Islamic resistance movement, said that the Zionist occupation has entered hell again in Gaza and is receiving painful blows after it began a ground aggression against Rafah, the Zaytun neighborhood, and Jabalia. Abu Ubaida revealed in a video speech that Al-Qassam fighters targeted 100 Zionist military vehicles within 10 days and killed a greater number of soldiers and officers than what the occupation announced.
The enemy's army launched a new aggression against Rafah, Zaytun neighborhood in Gaza City, and Jabalia in northern Gaza. However, they entered a new fire, facing fiercer resistance than the first. Our fighters taught the enemy some harsh lessons in eastern outskirts of Rafah. In Zaytun neighborhood, our fighters picked the enemy soldiers and officers, felling the highest-ranking officers since the start of the land attack. In Jabalia camp and city, the enemy is facing our fighters' hardiness, losing groups of its soldiers and equipment. Over the past 10 days, our fighters succeeded in targeting 100 enemy vehicles, tanks, APCs, bulldozers, in all fronts. On all fronts, our enemy is counting its losses by the dozens. They are ceaselessly evacuating soldiers.
Abu Ubaida emphasized that the resistance has warned that Netanyahu is sacrificing the prisoners for political gain, adding that the occupation with its military and political uncertainty is forcing its inmates into the unknown.
And the lie that the military pressure will secure the freedom of the prisoners is a recipe for taking the enemy prisoners to unknown. On many occasions, we announced names and pictures of the death of prisoners due to the enemy's army's actions. And because of the stubbornness of the political leadership and corrupt prime minister, we make these announcements to put the prisoners' families and people of the truth opposed to their government's lies and deception. When new facts about the prisoners are released, they should count the number of times we warned against this fate and against Netanyahu's sacrifice of the prisoners for political interest in a losing battle.
The Al-Qassam Brigades reported that their fighters successfully disrupted the supply route of the occupying army near the Jabalia camp in northern Gaza. According to a statement released by Al-Qassam, they used an Al-Yassin 105 shell to target a military vehicle in the supply convoy and engaged a group of occupation soldiers with a BKC machine gun, resulting in casualties. They further stated that this action compelled the occupation army to alter their supply routes for their invading forces multiple times. And the South African delegation before the Court of Justice called on the court's judges to consider the strength of the arguments and evidence presented by the delegation during the court's hearings regarding imposing additional measures to stop the genocide in the Gaza Strip. Zain Dangour, Director General of the Department of International Relations and Cooperation at the South African Ministry of Foreign Affairs, said that the second day of the hearings that his country's delegation presented all written evidence providing Israel's intention to commit genocide in Gaza.
That what we heard today was not really an engagement on the facts, some engagement on the facts, but not really rebutting what South Africa is trying to assert, is essentially trying to detract and blame, cast political aspersions on the intentions of South Africa. And what we are hoping for is that the judges will actually look at the strength of our own pleadings, not only now, but also in terms of our responses to Israel's written reports as required by the courts. Because we do believe that our own intention here has really been to bring to the fore key concerns around international crimes, in particularly the crimes of crimes, which is genocide in this case. And we are very serious about that from a human rights perspective.
For his part, the Palestinian Assistant Foreign Minister confirmed that the occupation is trying to draw a parallel reality through an imaginary presentation that contradicts everything that the international community have said about the violations and war of annihilation that it is practicing in Gaza. Let's take a listen.
I think what we heard today is a delusional presentation and a parallel reality that is contrary to everything that the international community, the relevant institutions, the numbers of humanitarian workers who were killed, the number of journalists, the live stream of this genocide, which you have all seen. Israel wants us to disbelieve what everybody is seeing lively, including in relation to humanitarian aid and everything.
Pressure mounts on Netanyahu to develop a post-war plan for Gaza amid accusations of indecision from political rivals in remarks that expose deepening political divisions within Israel's war cabinet. Marwa Al-Hiwar provides you with more details.
Pressure is rising on Zionist Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to formulate a post-war plan for Gaza, with political rivals accusing him of indecision as divergences within the occupation government burst into the open this week.
The Israeli Minister of War issued major statements in which he attacked Netanyahu. In addition to that, the fronts are on fire in the Israeli occupation state.
Defense Minister Gallant slammed Netanyahu for his inaction on a war and post-war plan on the Gaza Strip. Earlier this week, Gallant, who was backed by both members of the War Council, Benny Gantz and Gadi Eisenkot, said he was opposed to the Zionist military control or responsibility for the governance of Gaza. He emphasized that any scenario leading to that would erode Zionist military power and its economy and will cost many Zionist soldiers' lives. Gallant's comments shed light on the deepening political divisions within the Zionist war cabinet, where relations between officials are deteriorating after more than 7 months of war on Gaza.
Some reports relayed by Israeli newspapers, notably Yedot Aharonot, say that the separation of Gallant from the Likud party, in addition to 3 other deputies, if he manages to get their approval, he will end the mandate of this government. It doesn't need the withdrawal of Gallant and Izigut or Smotrich or Ben-Gvir.
Until the war ends and there is a clarity over what happens to Gaza, Zionist occupation's internal divisions is likely to grow and its global stand worsen.
And Spanish Prime Minister said he will announce on Wednesday the day on which Spain will recognize the Palestinian state along with several EU countries. He said in March earlier that Spain and Ireland, along with Slovenia and Malta, had agreed to take their first steps towards recognition of a Palestinian state, seeing a two-state solution as essential for lasting peace. Spain has refused to allow the ship Marion Danica carrying weapons destined for Israel to dock at the port of Cartagena. Spanish Foreign Minister José Manuel Alvarez said that this decision is in line with Spain's policy of banning weapon exports to Israel since the Gaza war began on October 7th. He emphasized that this policy will consistently apply to any ship carrying weapons to Israel. Moving on to other developments, Algerian Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf received a phone call from his Serbian counterpart Marko Đurić. A statement from the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs clarified that the call provided an opportunity to review historical relations between the two countries and to explore the venues for enhancing them, in addition to discussing political issues of mutual interest on the UN agenda. Secretary of the Algerian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Lounès Magraman, chaired at the headquarters of the Algerian Embassy in France on Friday a meeting with the Algerian consuls general and consuls accredited in European and North American countries. The meeting, which was also attended by Algeria's ambassador to France, Said Moussi, was devoted to following up on the implementation of the instructions of President Abdelmajid Tebboune regarding making arrangements to improve consular services for the benefit of members of the Algerian community abroad.
هذا الاجتماع الذي سيدوم يومين يأتي في سياق اللقاءات.
This two-day meeting will come within the framework of periodic meetings with consular centers abroad. Its agenda was allocated to follow up on the implementation of the instructions of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, to modernize and improve consular services for the benefit of members of our community abroad, as well as to take care of its concerns to the fullest extent. Our ministerial department, whether at the level of central administration or the departments abroad, has taken, in this context, a number of measures and procedures with the aim of improving reception conditions and consular services. Our consulate will witness in coming days a significant influx of members of our community in order to renew their administrative documents, especially travel documents, and these are the measures mentioned above. It was recently announced officially in the implementation of the instructions of the highest authorities in the country.
تنفيذا لتعليمات السلطات العليا في البلاد.
The meeting also tackled the measures and procedures that must be taken in preparation for the upcoming political events in Algeria, for most of which are the presidential elections. The Secretary General of the Algerian Foreign Ministry affirmed that the consular services attaches special importance to this file, which guarantees the smooth running of the operations. Let's take a listen.
تم التطرق خلال هذا الاجتماع.
We tackled during this meeting a series of issues, especially those related to the preparation to the important political events that Algeria will hold before the end of this year, for most of which are the presidential elections slated for October 7, 2024. In this context, we discussed the various tools that we will put at the disposal of all diplomatic centers in order to make these elections successful, and to respond to all the concerns of the centers about this matter, particularly with regard to the participation of all Algerians in this forthcoming event.
كل الجزائريين في هذا الاستحقاق المقبل إن شاء الله.
Algerian Minister of Energy and Mines Mohamed Arqab participated in the third edition of the International Forum Towards the South in Sorrento, Italy, under the theme of the European Strategy for a New Geopolitical and Socio-Cultural Era. On the occasion, he emphasized that Algeria is committed to the strengthening of the Trans-Saharan gas pipeline project, which will link Nigeria to the Mediterranean coast via Algeria and Niger. By connecting to the Algerian gas network, this project will significantly contribute to Europe's natural gas supply, thereby enhancing energy security along the northern Mediterranean coast. And additionally, the project will also support the social and economic development of the transit countries. In the same context, on the sidelines of the forum, Minister Arqab engaged in discussions with Tunisian Minister of Industry, Mines and Energy, Fatma Zahra Sharif. Their talks focused on enhancing bilateral cooperation in energy and mining, particularly in fuel production and marketing, electricity production and transmission, as well as in new and renewable sectors, energy sectors, and energy transition. Algerian Energy Minister Mohamed Arqab met with Edison's CEO Nicolas Monti alongside Sonatrach CEO Rachid Hashishi and ministry officials. They discussed cooperation in energy projects, including potential gas exports to Italy, electrical connection between Algeria and Italy, and the Southern Corridor hydrogen project. Today in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, Algeria reaffirmed its commitment to supporting initiatives aimed at bolstering cooperation and economic integration across Africa. The Ministry of Trade and Export Promotion conveyed Algeria's dedication to this cause. Algeria was represented by a distinguished delegation led by Souheila Abbaj, Chief of Staff of the Ministry of Trade and Export Promotion, at the fourth regular session of the African Union Specialized Technical Committee for Trade, Tourism, Industry and Mineral Resources. The session themed Enhancing Africa's Trade Competitiveness through Development of Tourism, Industrial and Mineral Resources took place in May 13th to May 17th. Algeria's National Assembly President Brahim Boughali proposed creating a UN Parliamentary Advisory Committee with representatives from member states. He emphasized the importance of involving people's representatives in global decision-making and UN activities during the preparatory meetings for the 6th World Conference of Speakers of Parliament in 2025.
The pivotal role of parliamentary diplomacy is clear and indisputable. All final statements issued by the 5 World Parliamentary Conferences of National Parliament speakers have unanimously supported the national parliaments and the Interparliamentary Union in their activities within the United Nations organization, enhancing their multifaceted efforts and striving to bridge the democratic gap in international relations. These speeches and resolutions could have entirely altered the course of the world if representatives of the people had been genuinely involved in the decision-making process. We call for a genuine and earnest contribution of the people's representatives in global decision-making and their more regular involvement in various UN activities and initiatives. Moreover, why not establish a consultative parliamentary committee within the United Nations organization, comprising representatives from the parliaments of the member states?
Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Friday that the strategic alliance between Russia and China in the energy field will be further strengthened, adding that Russia is ready to supply China with clean energy. Putin said at the Russian-Chinese Expo in Harbin during his state visit to China that the close relationship between Moscow and Beijing guarantees energy security and enhances the interests of both countries.
The mutual interest in implementing these projects is confirmed because the Chinese economy is growing. It is demanding the energy resources that are needed to support this growth. There is not anything more reliable. I think this is obvious. It doesn't exist anything more reliable than the Russian energy supplies. We have a huge common border, and nobody will interfere here. Neither sanctions against tanker shipments, nor even sanctions against the financial institutions.
And to some sports news now. MC Algiers won on Friday its 8th Algerian Championship title by beating its neighbor USM Algiers by 1-0 in a derby which took place in the presence of fans of both teams who packed the stands of the 5th of July Stadium in Algiers. The joy of the green and red supporters was double because on the one hand their team beat their neighbor USM Algiers, and on the other hand they secured the title of Algerian champion 3 days before the end of the competition. And more international news with Islam Sid.
Southeastern Texas endured another bout of severe thunderstorms, resulting in the loss of at least 4 lives according to Houston's mayor. The extensive damage paralyzed much of Houston, prompting urgent efforts to regain power and clear debris. With over 400,000 students affected by school closures and government offices shut down, the region grappled with the aftermath of the destructive weather. Heavy rain near the German-French border has caused flooding, with warnings for more rain. Quanshan district in Soundland is on a disaster alert, with 19 active weather warnings, including purple and red alerts indicating severe flood risks. Further heavy rainfall is expected, potentially leading to major flooding, according to authorities. The UN Human Rights Chief is alarmed by rising violence near Sudan's al-Fashir, urging both sides to prevent a humanitarian crisis if the city is attacked, with hundreds of thousands at risk and reports of at least 58 deaths in the area. International efforts to negotiate peace in the 13-month conflict intensify. South Korea and the United States collaborated in a joint air defense drill aimed at enhancing their preparedness against potential nuclear threats from North Korea. This move comes in response to increased tensions stemming from North Korea's continued missile tests and aggressive rhetoric throughout the year.
We get back to the sports news. The Algerian President, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has congratulated MC Algiers for their win on the occasion. That was it for tonight's program. Thank you for following and have a good night.